Hello everyone. I know you watched this video to accompany you to sleep. So if you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to tell me where you are from and what time you watched this video. Let's jump straight into the story. Story 1, when newlyweds vanish from a luxury Caribbean resort just hours after their dream wedding. Police suspected drowning, kidnapping, even human trafficking. But the truth was far darker and much closer, because someone in their bridal party had been planning the perfect murder for months. July 9, 2019, St. Lucia, Caribbean Sea. The waves lapped quietly along the pristine shoreline of Anse-Chastanet, where white sand met turquoise water, like a postcard sprung to life. Atop a stone terrace overlooking the ocean, 32 guests raised their champagne flutes in celebration. Palm leaves swayed in rhythm to a soft steel drum band. Fairy lights strung between coconut trees sparkled against the fading sunset. It was supposed to be the perfect destination wedding. And for a while, it was. The bride, Melissa Turner, 28, glowed in a lace-back Vera Wang gown. Her groom, Daniel Whitmore, 31, looked equally smitten in a sand-colored linen suit. They had exchanged vows on the beach just after golden hour, barefoot and beaming. Friends described it as something out of a movie. By 10:30 p.m., the last dances were winding down. Melissa's maid of honor, Hannah Clark, made a teary toast. Daniel's brother, Greg, lifted him into a bear hug. They cut the cake, threw the bouquet, took photos by the moonlit dock. By 11:15 p.m., the couple excused themselves from the party. They never returned. The discovery. July 10 to 6:45 a.m. A resort housekeeper knocked on the door of Bungalow 4. The private honeymoon suite perched above the rocky outcropping on the southern edge of the resort. No answer. Unusual, but not unheard of. The honeymoon suite had a private deck and stairs leading straight to the beach. Many couples used it to slip away unseen. By 8 a.m., with breakfast untouched and the couple still unaccounted for, hotel staff grew concerned. Security performed a wellness check. Inside, the room was pristine. The bed was made. No sign of disarray, struggle, or packing. But the couple's phones, passports, and wallets were all still there. Only two things were missing. Melissa's white flip-flops, Daniel's swim trunks. It looked like they had taken a midnight swim, except there was no towel, no water on the floor, no signs they ever returned. The panic. By 9:30 a.m., the resort had called local authorities. Police boats combed the shoreline. Divers searched the coral shelf. Choppers buzzed over cliffs and bays. Still nothing. Melissa's mother, Tracy Turner, fell into hysterics as news spread. Yes, many still hung over and groggy, clutched coffee cups in disbelief. Rumors swirled immediately. Had they eloped again, wandered off drunk, gone exploring? But no one could explain why they'd leave their valuables, or their wedding rings. And then came the first break in the case. The CCTV footage. The resort had limited security, but one camera, mounted discreetly on the reception office, pointed toward the walkway between Bungalow 4 and the beach trail. At 11:21 p.m., the grainy footage showed Daniel walking alone, shirtless, barefoot, toward the path. He never came back. At 11:24 p.m., Melissa followed. She, too, was barefoot. Her white nightgown fluttered briefly as she disappeared into the palm-covered trail. Neither were seen again. The press descends. News of the couple's disappearance went international within 24 hours. Newlyweds vanished during honeymoon in paradise. Mystery in St. Lucia. Did something lurk beyond the wedding? American bride and groom missing after wedding bliss. Media vultures circled. Twitter trended with eerie's. Drowning, drug trafficking, mistaken identity. One outlet even speculated on cult activity. Back home in Minnesota, Melissa's and Daniel's families made tearful pleas on national television. But quietly, behind the scenes, detectives were beginning to question the narrative. Something wasn't adding up. The guest list. Local investigators turned their attention inward. Who had access? The wedding guest list included Melissa's parents, brother, and 2 cousins. Daniel's immediate family. 6 childhood friends. For work colleagues. 5 college friends from Florida State, a photographer and videographer team, Melissa's maid of honor, Hannah Clark. They interviewed each one, and it didn't take long before inconsistencies emerged. The first red flag. The first came from a resort bartender named Alphonse. He remembered Daniel. He was agitated. Came to the bar alone around 10:45. Said something about needing to clear his head. He asked if the hiking trail up the bluff was closed. It was, but Daniel had gone up anyway. According to Alphonse, he never came down. This contradicted the CCTV footage that showed him heading toward the beach, unless he returned unseen and changed course. What had he seen up there? Or whom? The second red flag. The second discrepancy came from photographer Jessica Vale. When questioned, she recalled a strange moment between Melissa and Hannah around 9:50 p.m. They were whispering near the edge of the tent. Melissa looked upset. Hannah looked like she was trying to calm her down. I thought maybe it was wedding stress. But now, investigators reviewed Jessica's photos. At 9:51 p.m., there was one candid shot that would later become key. Melissa, mid-turn, mouth open in what looked like protest, Hannah's hand on her wrist. Not aggressive, but not affectionate either. A history of secrets. As the investigation deepened, a more complex picture began to emerge. Melissa and Hannah had been friends since middle school, thick as thieves. But in the weeks leading up to the wedding, Melissa had become distant. According to a bridesmaid who asked to remain anonymous, they were barely talking by the time we landed in St. Lucia. Something happened, but Melissa wouldn't say what. And then came a revelation from Daniel's best friend, Greg. About a week before the wedding, Daniel pulled me aside, said he found something. A message, or a photo. He looked spooked, said he was going to confront someone after the wedding. But Greg never learned what Daniel had found, only that he believed someone close to them had betrayed them. The trail behind the resort. 3 days after the couple vanished, a team of searchers, locals and FBI agents flown in under pressure, discovered something chilling. About 300 meters up the bluff trail behind the resort, hidden in a thicket of overgrowth, a single white sandal, a bloodstained hair tie, and an earring confirmed to be Melissa's. Nearby, drag marks in the dirt, a rock with a dark smear on its surface, and tire tracks fresh. No cars were allowed on the bluff trail, but a local maintenance worker later admitted to lending a golf cart to one of the wedding girls the night of the wedding, claiming she said it was for photos. She never returned it. Who had motive? Now the focus shifted from the unknown to the too well-known. Melissa, Daniel, Hannah, a trio that had once seemed inseparable, but cracks had formed long before the wedding. One email, recovered from Melissa's personal Gmail account, accessed with parental consent, changed everything. It was dated June 17, 2019, 3 weeks before the wedding. Subject, I know. Body, you lied to me for months. I found the photos. I know it was both of you. I'm not canceling the wedding, but after the vows, we're done. M. Attached. A JPG file with the name doc_kiss_01.jpg. It was deleted, but metadata confirmed it had once existed. Melissa knew someone had betrayed her, and she planned to expose them, just not before the wedding. The real honeymoon never began. The FBI began quietly pulling international flight records. No sightings of Melissa or Daniel boarding planes, ferries, or charters post-wedding. Interpol issued a global alert. St. Lucian authorities were pressured to expand the search. And back in Minnesota, Daniel's credit card, assumed frozen, pinged at a gas station outside Tampa, Florida. 3 days after the wedding, security footage showed a woman, sunglasses and hoodie, using it to pay for $38.70 of gas and snacks. She looked up once at the camera, and even grainy and obscured. There was no mistaking the shape of her mouth as she chewed her bottom lip. It was Hannah Clark. July 13th, 2019, Tampa, Florida. The morning sun blazed across the pavement of a mobile station just off I-75. The clerk behind the counter didn't recognize the woman in the hoodie and sunglasses at first. She looked like 100 other road-weary travelers, disheveled, quiet, efficient. She paid in cash for a soda and bag of pretzels, then used a credit card for gas. That car belonged to Daniel Whitmore, the missing groom presumed dead. At 11:08 a.m., she drove off in a black 2017 Honda CR-V. Plates registered to a rental agency in Miami. 12 hours later, the FBI matched the surveillance image with facial recognition. It was Hannah Clark, Melissa Turner's best friend, maid of honor, and now the prime suspect in what was beginning to look less like a tragic accident and more like a double homicide. The chase begins. When authorities issued a bolo, be on the lookout, on Hannah Clark, she'd already been on the road for days. Flight logs showed she never flew back to the U.S. through conventional means. That narrowed the possibility to boat transport, likely illegal or undocumented. The Caribbean is dotted with freelance captains willing to ferry passengers for the right price. A review of St. Lucia's dock logs found something interesting. On July 10th, a vessel named the Coral Runner, captained by Tomas Alvarez, made an unscheduled departure to Martinique. No customs logs, no official manifest. 2 days later, Hannah Clark appeared in Florida. Interpol flagged it as a likely illicit extraction. Hannah didn't just run. She planned her escape. The secret life of Hannah Clark. The FBI dug deeper into Hannah's digital footprint. On the surface, she was a straight-A college graduate turned elementary school teacher. She'd been Melissa's best friend since 7th grade. Sweet, loyal, dependable. But beneath the curated Instagram posts and Pinterest wedding boards, there was another version of Hannah, one who frequented forums about emotional rebirth and clean slates, one who had recently begun studying true crime cases involving disappearances, one who had Googled, in the weeks before the wedding, can you be prosecuted without a body? How to erase GPS from iPhone? How long does it take for ocean currents to move a body? And perhaps most disturbing, how to make it look like an accident. The affair. The FBI recovered fragments of deleted text threads between Hannah and Daniel Whitmore. Using advanced software, they pieced together a chilling timeline. March 12, 2019. First suggested message from Daniel to Hannah. April 5, 2019. Photo of Hannah in lingerie sent at 2:14 a.m. May 2nd, 2019, Daniel writes, I can't marry her if this keeps going. June 15th, 2019, Hannah responds, you'll marry her. You have to. And then we fix it. Whatever fix it meant, Daniel never explained. But what the text revealed was clear. Daniel and Hannah had been having an affair, and Melissa had found out. The tipping point. Investigators theorized that Melissa intended to confront them after the ceremony. That night, a controlled detonation with witnesses, possibly even on camera. And perhaps Hannah believed Daniel would deny it, or worse, betray her. Instead, Hannah may have chosen a different ending. The dock evidence. Back in St. Lucia, cadaver dogs signaled near the far end of the beach, just beyond the CCTV blind spot. Divers discovered something wedged beneath the dock support beam. A GoPro, still recording when found. A length of synthetic rope, tangled in seaweed. A silver bracelet, later identified as Daniel's wedding gift to Melissa. The GoPro footage, though water damaged, revealed flickers of movement. A scuffle, a scream, and what appeared to be a person's legs dragging something heavy down the beach, out of camera range. It wasn't conclusive, but it was enough. Arrest warrant issued. On July 15th, the U.S. Department of Justice issued a federal warrant for Hannah Clark. 2 counts of felony murder, 1 count of conspiracy to commit homicide, interstate flight to avoid prosecution. But Hannah had already gone underground, the apartment in Jacksonville. A break came on July 17th, when a landlord in Jacksonville, Florida, called local police. A tenant had vacated a short-term rental without notice, leaving behind several burner phones, a half-burned photo album labeled M&D 2016, a journal filled with unhinged entries, including, she always took what I wanted, always got the light. He said I was a better one. Why didn't he mean it? They were going to laugh. I couldn't let them laugh. The FBI was closing in. A trap laid. Hannah had no known relatives in Florida, but records showed one recurring phone number. A former professor from Florida State, Dr. Mark, whom Hannah had assisted during a summer teaching program. The FBI set a bait call, posing as Dr. Mark, using voice cloning software. A meeting was suggested. A quiet park on the edge of Tallahassee. No questions, just a place to talk. Hannah took the bait. The arrest. July 19th, 2019, Tom Brown Park, Tallahassee. At 3:42 p.m., a woman matching Hannah's description approached a bench near a wooded trail. She wore sunglasses, a dark hoodie, and joggers. She never saw the agents coming. Two plainclothes officers moved in from behind, pinning her arms. A third identified himself and read her Miranda rights. She didn't resist. She didn't speak. She simply smiled and whispered he was never going to leave her. The silence that followed. Hannah was extradited to Minnesota. The trial was months away, but in the interrogation room, when asked repeatedly where the bodies were, she offered only one reply: they're not together. When asked who had actually killed Melissa, Hannah tilted her head and said, she started it. The implications were disturbing. Had Melissa attacked first? Had Hannah killed in self-defense? Or was this part of a larger lie? The investigators feared something worse. That Melissa Turner was still alive. August 2nd, 2019, Augusta, Georgia. It was a humid Friday afternoon when Carmen Riley, a school counselor on summer break, stepped into the butterfly garden at the Riverwalk Nature Preserve. Her 7-year-old niece tugged her hand toward the koi pond, while Carmen lingered by the milkweed patch, snapping a photo of a monarch mid-landing. That's when she noticed her, a young woman barefoot, sitting cross-legged near the garden's edge, picking at a sunflower with trembling fingers. Her hair was long and unkempt, sun-bleached blonde, the kind that hadn't seen a brush in weeks. Her white cotton dress was stained with soil. She had a plastic water bottle tucked beside her and a canvas bag with a broken zipper. But it wasn't her appearance that stopped Carmen cold. It was her face. Carmen had seen it before, on TV, on missing posters, across her social feed. She fumbled for a phone, pretending to text while snapping a photo. Then she called the police. The possible sighting. By the time officers arrived, the woman was gone. The garden was empty, but Carmen had taken a photo. And when local authorities compared it to missing person databases, facial recognition software produced a 93% match. The woman wasn't a vagrant. She was Melissa Turner, presumed dead for over 3 weeks. The ripple effect. The news hit law enforcement like a thunderclap. If Melissa was alive, it meant several things. Hannah Clark's claims couldn't be entirely dismissed. The motive, timeline, and evidence in the case could be misaligned. And most urgently, Daniel Whitmore might still be missing, or dead, or being held somewhere. The FBI reactivated leads previously considered dead ends. Melissa's bank accounts, still untouched. Phone, dead since July 10th. But then came the second break, the hardware store footage. On August 4th, a store manager at a small hardware supply shop outside Augusta contacted police. He'd seen the news, and he remembered selling a woman a box of nails, rope, and a tarp on July 25th. Security footage confirmed it. Same girl, same stained dress, but now she looked more paranoid. Eyes darting, face thinner, lips cracked. She paid cash, and according to the manager, she asked if the rope was strong enough to hold something heavy. I thought maybe she was building or moving, but now the FBI had no choice. They reclassified the investigation as a potential ongoing crime, a trail into the pines. 3 days later, a search team discovered a makeshift shelter 5 miles into the backwoods of the Summer National Forest, hidden behind a hunting trail. Inside, a tattered sleeping bag, cans of beans and protein bars, several empty water jugs, a stained wedding veil, folded neatly inside a shoebox, pinned to a nearby tree, a photograph of Daniel Whitmore, scratched out in red marker. Underneath, scrawled in charcoal, I said no, The journal. In the bottom of the shoebox was a slim leather journal. It contained only 4 entries, each one written in messy, unstable handwriting, part cursive, part printed. Entry 1, July 12th. The ocean tried to take me, but I wasn't done. I didn't say yes. He told her he loved me, then he didn't. Then he hurt me. Entry 2, July 18th. I walked for miles, slept in trees. I see her face when I close my eyes. She was supposed to be my sister. Entry 3, July 22nd. Found the road. No one sees me. No one helps. Good. If they do, they'll know. They'll ask. I won't answer. Entry 4, July 30th. He begged. But you can't beg after betrayal. She cried. But not for me. I still hear the splash. There were no names, no dates, no confessions, just fragments. But one thing was clear. Melissa Turner had survived something, and she was running from someone. Hannah speaks, back in custody. Hannah Clark had refused all interviews since her arrest. But when news of the Melissa sighting reached her, her lawyer arranged a closed-door meeting. Inside the room, Hannah appeared calm, until shown the photo from the butterfly garden, her eyes filled with tears. I didn't kill her, she whispered. She was supposed to be gone. I thought she was gone. The room fell silent. When asked to explain, she took a long breath, then said 4 words. You're looking for Daniel, the missing piece. With Melissa alive and in hiding and Hannah backpedaling, the focus returned to Daniel Whitmore, the original groom, now caught in a triangle of betrayal, murder, and lies. Was he dead? Was he missing? Or was he the one orchestrating it all? A new theory emerged. What if Daniel had pitted the 2 women against each other? What if, when Melissa learned the affair, he'd told Hannah Melissa was violent, and told Melissa that Hannah was obsessed? What if his plan wasn't to marry Melissa or run with Hannah, but to escape both? A new lead. The FBI began re-examining the wedding videographer's raw footage, finally released from the cloud. One frame stood out, shot accidentally during packing at 12:03 a.m., long after the ceremony. It showed the beach, empty except for one silhouette. Not Melissa, not Hannah. A man, dragging something wrapped in what looked like a veil. They enhanced the frame. The resolution wasn't perfect, but the man's broad shoulders and limp matched previous footage of Daniel from the rehearsal dinner. If accurate, this photo was taken after Daniel was presumed missing, meaning he was alive and possibly in control. August 6, 2019, Minneapolis, Minnesota. The Whitmore family home was still wrapped in yellow crime scene tape when agents from the FBI's Minneapolis field office arrived with a warrant. They'd already searched once, early on, when Daniel was simply a missing person. But now, with evidence suggesting Daniel may not be a victim, they combed deeper. His childhood bedroom was untouched, preserved by grieving parents. But the real focus was a garage, a 2-car, detached structure Daniel had converted into a workshop the year before. Inside, behind a false panel in the tool cabinet, they found a dusty, locked case. It contained a second passport in the name Elias March, $22,000 in cash, 3 prepaid phones, 2 burner laptops, and a leather-bound notebook titled Consortium Leads, Active Clients. What Daniel Whitmore had kept hidden wasn't just a secret, it was a business. The double life. Over the next 48 hours, cyber agents pieced together Daniel's digital footprint behind layers of proxies and VPNs. Daniel had created a sophisticated alias network. He operated under multiple names on forums dealing in crypto laundering, luxury identity forgeries, and, most ominously, targeted surveillance for hire. He sold packages of information, social media tracking, phone pings, routine mapping, services he offered discreetly to jealous spouses, private investigators, and in some cases, obsessive exes. Daniel Whitmore had been running a side hustle built on invasion, manipulation, and control. His clients spanned 6 states. Some were innocent, others disturbingly unhinged. He hadn't just lied to Melissa and Hannah. He had profited from others doing the same. Melissa's file, One of the laptops contained encrypted folders. Inside was a client directory, including a full dossier on Melissa Turner, phone records, schedule logs, photos taken through her apartment window, bank statements, a copy of her prescription history. It read like a case file, but wasn't labeled Melissa. It was labeled Target 003 ICE. The entries began in November 2018. For months before their engagement, Daniel had been tracking her before he proposed. This wasn't love. This was something far more calculated. The wedding was a setup. Investigators now suspected the entire destination. The wedding may have been a controlled event, one that Daniel could oversee in a closed environment. Limited guest list, isolated location, no local law enforcement on site, with both women under his influence. It wasn't clear what the end game was, but Daniel had mapped the entire resort, marked every camera location, logged boat departure times, tracked tide charts. It was methodical. This wasn't just a wedding, it was a containment zone, and possibly a cover for a disappearance. The mysterious contact. One final lead emerged. The notebook listed a contact. J.G. Crimson Hollow, 1900 hours drop, no loose ends. Crimson Hollow wasn't on any map, but in the Carolina backwoods, locals used the term for a patch of unincorporated forest near the Savannah River. It was rumored to be home to squatters, survivalists, and worse. The FBI assembled a small task force and headed south. Crimson Hollow. The team arrived at the edge of the pine forest on August 9th. The area was known for illegal hunting camps and abandoned buildings. Within 2 hours of searching, they found a burned-out shed. Inside were charred remains of a laptop, a melted GoPro casing, a half-buried canvas bag containing a ring box with Daniel and Melissa's initials. The soil showed signs of recent digging, then reburial. Cadaver dogs hit on a scent trail, but no body was recovered. Then, in the brush nearby, they found an ID badge of the St. Lucia resort, belonging to Tomas Alvarez, the same boat captain believed to have smuggled Hannah into Florida. The name was crossed out in red ink. A body in the river. On August 10th, a fisherman near a bend in the Savannah River spotted something snagged against driftwood. It was a male body, heavily decomposed. Dental records later confirmed it was Tomas Alvarez. He'd been shot twice in the chest, execution style. Found in his pocket was a water-damaged business card. Whitmire Consulting. Discreet solutions for difficult people. This wasn't just coincidence. This was cleanup. Someone was tying up loose ends. And that someone might still be watching. Hannah's second confession, back in her cell. Hannah Clark was shaken when told of the evidence in Crimson Hollow. She asked to speak without her attorney present. What she said stunned the FBI. Daniel told me the wedding was a game. Said whoever stayed loyal would get the real prize. He said Melissa was testing me, and he was testing her. The morning after they disappeared, I found her crying on the rocks. She said she thought he drowned. We fought. I hit her. She ran. But I didn't kill anyone. She handed the agent a letter, written in Daniel's handwriting. Signed, for ICE, when you finally understand. It ended with a cryptic line. One of you will swim, one of you will sink, and I will sail. The game unfolds. Authorities now believe Daniel manipulated both women into mistrusting and surveilling each other. He used the wedding as a final pressure cooker to see who would crack. And once they did, he used the chaos to vanish, leaving two pawns behind take the fall. But Daniel underestimated one thing. Melissa didn't die, and she wasn't running anymore. August 12, 2019, Columbia, South Carolina. The woman walked into the Greyhound station just after 8 p.m. Her white dress was gone, replaced by borrowed jeans and a faded hoodie. She kept her head low, hood drawn, sleeves pulled tight. No one recognized her. At the counter, she purchased a ticket in cash. Destination, Louisville, Kentucky. Departure time, 9:10 p.m. Name given, Lisa Grant. But security footage would later confirm what the name tried to hide. Melissa Turner was no longer on the run. She was on the hunt. The game changes. 2 days later, the FBI received an anonymous email. Subject: "You're looking in the wrong direction. Body: he'll run again. He always does. But I'll be ready this time. You want him? Follow the flowers." Attached, a blurry photo of what looked like an abandoned greenhouse, overgrown with vines. Geotagging revealed the location: Frankfort, Kentucky, less than an hour from Louisville. A follow-up email arrived the next day. He liked to play God, so I built him an altar. The greenhouse. August 15th, FBI agents and local law enforcement descended on the old Whitley Orchid Nursery. A defunct flower operation shut down in 2008 after fire. Inside the collapsed glass dome, among weeds and rusted equipment, they found a surreal tableau. Dozens of wedding photos of Melissa and Daniel, pinned to the broken greenhouse wall. A line of bridal shoes, all identical, leading into the overgrowth. And in the center, a chair. Strapped to the chair was a mannequin wearing Daniel's wedding tuxedo. Its plastic face had been burned and melted. Taped to the chest was a note: "This is what he made me." And beneath it, scrawled in red marker: "Now it's my turn." The trap. At first, agents feared Melissa had gone off the deep end, but then they noticed something even stranger. Every wedding photo had been altered, not digitally, but by hand. In each one, Daniel's eyes were scratched out, while Melissa's were circled. The implication wasn't madness. It was a message. He sees nothing. I see everything now. And then, beneath the mannequin in a steel lockbox, they found a USB drive, labeled "The Game Files." The Game Files. The drive contained hundreds of audio recordings, some dating back over a year. Each one a different conversation between Daniel and women who weren't Melissa. In many, he used aliases: Elias, Mark, Dane. He coached them on lies to tell their partners. He gave advice on hiding affairs, manipulating rivals, and weaponizing sympathy. It was a manual for emotional control. And worse, Melissa's voice appeared in at least 12 recordings. She had been recorded without consent. Private arguments, breakdowns, vulnerable confessions. He'd saved it all. One folder was titled "Ice Cracks." The map, also in the greenhouse, was a map tacked to the wall. It marked 6 cities: Minneapolis, Minnesota; Tampa, Florida; Columbia, South Carolina; Atlanta, Georgia; Asheville, North Carolina; New Haven, Connecticut. Each location had a red circle with a date. The date for New Haven was August 22nd, exactly 1 week away. Melissa hadn't just gone rogue. She was tracking Daniel's escape pattern, and she was planning her next move: the Shadow Network. Behind the scenes, the FBI assembled a profile of Melissa's movements since the wedding. July 11th, disappeared from Street Lucia. July 23rd, purchased burner phone in Atlanta. July 30th, spotted in Augusta. August 4th, seen in Columbia. August 12th, bought bus ticket to Louisville. But now they realized she had help. A digital analysis of the anonymous emails revealed metadata, showing they were sent from a private network, accessed through a university server in Georgia. IP addresses traced back to a student login: Becca Garrison, 21, a tech-savvy college dropout, and one of Daniel's former clients. Becca told agents, "I found out what he was, what he does to people. When Melissa contacted me, I knew he needed to pay." Melissa wasn't just fighting back. She was recruiting the women Daniel had used. The mask comes off. On August 17th, a woman posted a video to an underground message board. The lighting was dim, her face half obscured, but her voice was steady. It was Melissa. "You called it game. I called it love. You recorded me when I cried. Then you disappeared when I bled. You think you won. But I've learned from you, Daniel. Every lie you told, every move you made. You taught me how to disappear. And now I'm going to show you what it's like to be hunted. You'll see me again." The post was removed within hours, but the message was clear. New Haven. The FBI, now fully engaged, dispatched agents to New Haven, Connecticut, Daniel's last known stop as Elias March. where he once ran a seminar under a fake self-help brand. They traced a rental property leased under a shell LLC, recently renewed for another month. On August 22nd, agents set up a surveillance perimeter, but Melissa was already there. She had broken in 2 days earlier, and what she found inside changed everything. The truth room, the basement, had been converted into what could only be described as a psychological war room. Dozens of screens displaying social media accounts, mostly women. Printouts of texts and DMs sorted into folders by risk, a wall labeled the Icebox, containing Melissa's image in the center, surrounded by lines leading to other women, and in the middle, a corkboard labeled Endgame, Ice/Flame/Ash. Next to Melissa's face were two others, Hannah Clark, and an unknown red-haired woman, listed only as Flame. She was marked terminated. Melissa realized something. She wasn't the first. She might not even be the second. Daniel had played this game before, and someone had already died. The knock on the door. At 9:12 p.m. on August 22nd, someone knocked on the door of the New Haven property. Melissa waited, holding her breath. She had one hand on her phone, one on the knife she'd taken from the kitchen. She opened the door slowly. It wasn't Daniel. It was a young woman, disheveled, eyes puffy, and she said, "Are you Melissa?" Melissa nodded. The woman whispered, "I think he's going to kill me." August 22nd, 2019, New Haven, Connecticut. She called herself Claire, but Melissa could tell that wasn't her real name. She was shaking, her voice barely above a whisper. Her red hair was matted with sweat, and she had a bruise forming under one eye. She carried nothing but a torn handbag and a burner phone. When Melissa asked how she found the house, Claire said, "He told me to meet him here. He said it was time I stopped running." Melissa had heard those words before, almost the same ones Daniel had said to her on their engagement night. Words that sounded romantic until they weren't. Claire wasn't just another of Daniel's cast-offs. She was his next target, the Flame. Claire revealed the truth over the next few hours, through sobs and stutters. Her real name was Allison Hartman, 25, from Albany. She had met Elias March at a wellness retreat the year before, hosted under Daniel's fake brand Elevate Circle. He had coached her on emotional detachment, helped her sever ties with toxic people, her parents and fiancé, and then, slowly, he began to break her down. He told me I had a flame inside me, that I burned too hot, that I had to trust only him. By December, she had moved into a furnished rental he controlled. By January, she had no job, no bank account, no ID. He told me I had to erase myself before I could rebuild. Melissa felt her throat close. This wasn't seduction. This wasn't just control. This was systematic erasure. The archive. Back in the truth room, Melissa and Allison began to search for answers. They cataloged what was on the wall. Photos, names, dates. Dozens of women, some marked with codes. "I see." Code, calculating, suspicious. Flame, passionate, volatile, harder to control. ASH, burned out, disposable. Next to each name, a final annotation. Exited, in play, or chillingly, and no further action. There were 27 names in total. Melissa's was number 26. Allison's, number 28. The file named Ash. They found a folder on Daniel's backup drive labeled ASH_07. Inside were hundreds of images and documents related to a woman named Danica Bell, age 30, last known address, Sarasota, Florida. Declared missing, February 2017. Photos showed Danica with Daniel in several locations, smiling, kissing, unaware of the camera. One image showed her sleeping. Another showed her bruised. Her file ended with a short note. Deviated. Cut contact. Termination required. She was listed as closed. Melissa contacted the FBI tip line that night with the evidence. It would take them less than a week to link Danica's disappearance to a Jane Doe body recovered in the Everglades 2 years earlier, never identified. Dental records confirmed it. Danica Bell had been murdered, and Daniel Whitmore was now a suspect in at least one confirmed homicide. The turning point. Melissa realized something that night. She could no longer run, hide, or hunt from shadows. There were others like Allison, some already broken, some buried, some still in Daniel's grip. She needed help, not from the police, who would never let her move freely again, but from a network of women Daniel had manipulated. She reached out to Becca Garrison again, told her to reactivate the old Reddit threads Daniel had once used to find clients. This time, they'd post anonymously under a new banner. Project Exit. For anyone who loved Elias March and lived to regret it, within 24 hours, they had 9 messages. All women, all afraid, all with stories of man who took everything from them. The plan. Melissa called the project what it really was, the Survivor Files. Together, the women built a database. Names, alias contacts, locations, psychological tactics, dates of contact, and discard. Melissa didn't want revenge anymore. She wanted justice. But she also knew that Daniel would only come out of hiding for one reason, to regain control. So she offered it, the bait. Melissa posted a final message to the private forum. She knew Daniel still monitored. You were right. I was always IC. But you forgot, ice floats. Come see for yourself. No traps, no police, just the end. Attached was an address, a lakeside cabin in the Catskills, and the date, August 28th, just 6 days away. The question of guilt. In the meantime, the FBI reevaluated the original case. Hannah Clark remained in custody, but the narrative had changed. She wasn't just a scorn mistress. She had been recorded, manipulated, possibly even groomed since college. Melissa submitted the GoPro footage from the wedding night. It showed enough to cast doubt, enough to show that Daniel had staged everything, and that Melissa's disappearance may have saved her life. But none of that would matter if Daniel got to her first. The final hunt begins. On the morning of August 23rd, a rental car was flagged on the George Washington Bridge. License plate matched one stolen from a dealership in Maryland. The driver was male, wearing sunglasses and a cap. Facial recognition pinged at 64%. Just low enough to avoid a flag. But the partial print on the gas station nozzle, a match for Daniel Whitmore. He was en route to upstate New York. And the final game was about to begin. August 28, 2019, Catskill Mountains, New York. The cabin sat near the edge of a lake, so still, it looked like black glass. Fog hung thick over the water, and the only sounds were the occasional flap of wings overhead and the rustle of pine needles in the breeze. Inside, Melissa Turner stood at the window, her face unreadable. She had spent the last 4 days preparing for this moment. Securing the cabin, placing the cameras, reviewing escape routes. But no matter how many times she replayed it in her mind, she knew the outcome was still unknown. Would he come? And if he did, would she survive it? The cabin setup. Melissa hadn't chosen a location at random. This cabin had once belonged to Daniel's uncle, a reclusive man who died years earlier. Daniel had brought Melissa here in the early days of their relationship, back when he was still pretending to be someone else. It was isolated, off-grid, perfect. She left the front door unlocked. The lights low. A kettle simmered on the old stove, and tucked behind the couch, next to her carefully disguised phone, was a .38 revolver with one round chambered. Melissa didn't want to kill him, but she wasn't going to die for him either. The arrival, 9:07 p.m. Tires crunched over gravel. She didn't move, didn't blink. A car door opened, then closed. Footsteps on the porch. A long silence. Then a knock. 3 quick taps, rhythmic, confident, exactly like he used to knock on her door when he brought her flowers. She opened the door, and there he was, Daniel Whitmore, alive, whole, smirking, like none of this had ever happened. Face to face, he stepped inside without being invited, glancing around casually, hands in the pockets of his windbreaker. Cozy, he said, reminds me of us, back when you were still trying to impress me with your book collection and coffee rituals. Melissa didn't respond. He walked to the window and looked out over the lake. You didn't tell anyone, right? Only everyone you ever hurt, she said coldly. He turned slowly, the smirk still faintly there. They don't matter. The conversation. For the next hour, they talked. Melissa recorded every second, discreetly, through the burner phone camera pointed at the fireplace. Daniel confessed to everything without technically confessing. He spoke in riddles and metaphors. You can't play a game unless the pieces move. Love is only pure when it's tested under fire. I didn't lie to you. I curated reality. He described Melissa and Hannah as opposing variables and said Allison Flame was too combustible. He never mentioned Danica Bell. He never said the word murder. But he didn't have to. His face said it all. And so did the message Melissa had hidden in the couch cushions. Help. He's here. Start the feed. The live stream, 300 miles away, in a small operations center run out of Becca Garrison's basement. 5 women watched in real time as Daniel Whitmore paced the cabin. They weren't FBI agents. They weren't law enforcement, but they had all been victims. And this time, they were his jury. They started recording. They uploaded the stream to a private server, and they began compiling timestamps. 9:31 p.m. confirms testing multiple women. 9:45 p.m. refers to Melissa as expendable if it failed. 10:12 p.m. says Danica knew too much. Melissa had done it. She had baited him into revealing his truth, the shift. But Daniel grew uneasy. He glanced toward the bookshelf, where Melissa had once stored her psychology texts. You're calm, he said. Too calm. Maybe I've changed, she replied. You're not the same girl who cried when I missed your birthday. You're right, she said. That girl died in St. Lucia. Daniel's smile vanished. He stepped closer. So what now, Ice? Are we enemies? No, she said. We're done. She didn't reach for the gun. She didn't need to, because outside, headlights were approaching. The backup arrives. 2 vehicles rolled in from the trail. Not cops, but survivors. Becca, Allison, and 2 others, Marisol and Karen, both former clients of Daniel's twisted psychological schemes. They entered the cabin like ghosts from his past. Daniel froze. What is this? He asked, his voice rising. Accountability? Melissa said. The confession. Surrounded, Daniel lashed out. He yelled. He threatened. He called them liars, manipulators, hysterical. But the camera caught it all. At 10:42 p.m., he screamed, You all came to me. You wanted to be saved. You gave me your lives. I gave you clarity. You think anyone else would have helped you? I'll only kill the ones who begged me to let go. And there it was, the confession, not metaphor, not implication, a direct admission. The takedown. Melissa nodded once, and Becca hit send. The live feed uploaded directly to a secure Dropbox shared with 2 FBI agents Melissa had secretly met the week before. Within minutes, a federal team, already positioned 3 miles down the trail, was dispatched. At 10:51 p.m., they entered the cabin. Daniel tried to run. He didn't make it past the porch. The arrest. Daniel Whitmore was arrested on the following charges. First-degree murder, Danica Bell. Attempted murder, Melissa Turner. Aggravated coercion and identity fraud. Racketeering through coercive psychological manipulation. Obstruction of justice. Witness tampering. And pending review, multiple charges of criminal conspiracy and sexual predation. As he was dragged past Melissa, he muttered, You were my masterpiece. Melissa looked him dead in the eyes. No, I'm your reckoning. February 10th, 2020, Manhattan Federal Courthouse. The courthouse buzzed with reporters, protesters, and spectators from across the country. By sunrise, camera crews were shoulder to shoulder along Foley Square. The headline across every screen read the same. The groom of death faces justice. Inside, the air was tense. Families of victims sat shoulder to shoulder with media and strangers who had followed the case online. Courtroom seats had been allocated like tickets to a concert. In the defendant's chair sat Daniel Whitmore, his tailored suit a far cry from the man last seen being dragged from a cabin in handcuffs, but his smugness still intact. Across from him sat Melissa Turner, the bride who survived. And today, she wasn't just a survivor. She was a star witness. The charges. Federal prosecutors had consolidated a sweeping case into three main categories. First-degree murder, for confirmed homicide of Danica Bell, tied to forensic evidence and a digital confession. Attempted murder and kidnapping, for the events surrounding Melissa Turner, her disappearance, and psychological manipulation. Pattern of fraud, coercion, and abuse, involving 12 other women, spanning 5 states, dating back nearly a decade. The government called it a pattern of predatory psychology. The media called it the mind game murders. Daniel still called it a misunderstood lifestyle. The opening statement. Assistant U.S. Attorney Mara Colfax stood before the jury and delivered a haunting opening. Daniel Whitmore did not kill with a knife or a gun. He killed with trust. He offered salvation to vulnerable women, only to exploit, isolate, and eliminate them when they stopped serving his needs. Today, we won't just prove what he did. We will show you exactly who he is. The defense, led by slick-talking attorney Reed McAllister, argued the opposite. My client is a man who sought to help emotionally damaged individuals reclaim their lives. Any romantic involvement was mutual. Any disappearances are coincidental. And any harm suffered, tragic though it is, was not criminal. He ended with, Daniel Whitmore didn't play God. He played therapist. Badly maybe, but not illegally. The witnesses. The prosecution rolled out witness after witness. Becca Garrison detailed how Daniel used online aliases to recruit emotionally vulnerable women. Allison Hartman Clare described being gaslit, isolated, and nearly driven to suicide. A forensic psychologist testified that Daniel's tactics matched coercive cult behavior more than casual manipulation. The FBI cyber team outlined how Daniel's files were stored, named, and organized to rank victims by utility. Then came the video recordings. One by one, the jury was shown. Daniel referring to Melissa as Target 003 ICE, describing Allison as an unstable spark to study, bragging about controlling women's bank access, apartment leases, even therapy schedules. Each clip tightened the noose. But it was Melissa who made it unforgettable. Melissa's testimony. She took the stand on February 17th. 6 months the day since she had returned from hiding. Poised, calm, no notes, no dramatics. He made me question my memories. He told me I'd imagined arguments that left bruises, that my reactions were signs of instability. He didn't just gaslight me, he rewrote me, until I couldn't tell whether I loved him or feared him. He proposed while already planning how I would disappear. She described the wedding night, the ocean, the chaos, the moment she thought she would drown, and the journal she kept in the woods. At one point, the prosecutor held up her old wedding veil. "Is this yours?" "Not anymore," Melissa said. "That woman doesn't exist." The defense crumbles. McAllister's cross-examination was brief, and a mistake. He tried to suggest Melissa was mentally unstable. She remained cool. "Are you on medication, Miss Turner?" "Yes," for anxiety, "because I was engaged to a predator." The courtroom murmured. McAllister sat down. In the following days, 3 more women came forward, previously unknown, claiming Daniel had also targeted them. The judge allowed their written testimonies. Each story echoed the same pattern: isolation, dependency, control, collapse, and always Daniel disappearing just before the woman snapped. The turning point. Then came the GoPro footage. The wedding night video, accidentally left recording, captured Daniel's voice whispering to Hannah Clark, "If she goes in the water, just let her float. Don't pull her back unless she begs." The footage also caught a moment between Daniel and another male resort staffer. Daniel, "Make sure the cameras face the sand, not the sea." Staffer, "You got it. What's the plan again?" Daniel, "She swims, or she sinks." The jury was visibly shaken. The prosecution rested. The verdict: on March 6, 2020, after 6 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a unanimous verdict: guilty on all counts. Daniel's smirk finally cracked. Judge Marjorie Ellis addressed him. "Mr. Whitmore, you used trust as a weapon. You left a trail of ruin and trauma that stretches across states and lives. This court sentences you to life in federal prison without the possibility of parole." The aftermath. The headlines were massive. Monster groom sentenced to life. Turner testifies. How I survived a killer's honeymoon plan. From bride to avenger, Melissa Turner's stand. Melissa declined most interviews. Instead, she founded a nonprofit called the ICE Project, a support network for survivors of coercive abuse and emotional manipulation. She disappeared from the public eye, but her mission remained clear: to expose the ones who hide behind charm and control, and to make sure Daniel Whitmore was never forgotten for the monster he truly was. March 10th, 2020, Metropolitan Detention Center, Brooklyn. Hannah Clark sat motionless at the metal table, staring at the plastic-wrapped sandwich in front of her. It had been 242 days since she was arrested for suspected involvement in the disappearance of Melissa Turner. For nearly 8 months, she'd been branded as a jealous mistress, the second woman, the pawn in the groom's twisted triangle. Now the world knew who the true manipulator was. Daniel Whitmore was behind bars. And for the first time since that stormy night in St. Lucia, Hannah was ready to tell her truth. The interview request. Following Daniel's conviction, NBC's Dateline and 60 Minutes had both requested exclusive access to Melissa. She turned them down, but Hannah didn't. Her lawyer negotiated one sit-down interview with conditions: no media circus, no tabloid twists, and full editorial control by Hannah. The interview was scheduled for March 15, 2020, to be aired nationally under the title, "The Other Woman, Surviving the Groom." The truth comes out. In the interview, Hannah's voice trembled, but she never cried. "He found me when I was 20. I was in college, dating someone abusive. Daniel made me feel seen, rescued. He helped me break away. But then he filled that space with himself." She explained how he infiltrated every part of her life, took control of her therapy schedule, encouraged her to cut off friends, managed her emails under the guise of protecting her. Then he told her she had a rival, a woman who threatened her place in his world. Melissa, the manipulation. He said Melissa was unstable, dangerous. He told me she tried to kill herself once and blamed him. I believed him. He made it sound like he was protecting me from her. Then he suggested something bold, that they all go away together. He said the wedding would be the final test, that I would see the truth for myself. Hannah was told that Melissa was suicidal, that she might disappear, that it was inevitable. He didn't tell me to hurt her. He just planted the idea that I shouldn't stop her. The wedding night, her version. I saw Melissa crying by the cliffs. I approached her. We argued. She accused me of stalking her. I accused her of manipulating him. She shoved me. I shoved her back. And then she was gone, slipped on the rocks. I screamed for help, but no one came. Hannah insisted she believed Melissa had died. When I couldn't find her, I told Daniel. He didn't panic. He smiled. He said, "Then I guess she failed the test." Aftermath and arrest. Hannah stayed on the island for another day. When authorities questioned her, Daniel coached her answers. 2 days later, she was arrested in Miami when she attempted to fly home alone. Melissa's still missing. I didn't kill Melissa, but I didn't try to save her either. And for that, I carry guilt every day. The plea. Following Daniel's conviction and Melissa's cooperation, federal prosecutors offered Hannah a plea deal. Plead guilty to reckless endangerment and obstruction of justice in exchange for time served and continued cooperation in related cases. On March 20th, Hannah Clark entered her plea and was officially released. A letter from Melissa. 2 days later, a manila envelope arrived at Hannah's apartment. Inside was a single page, handwritten. Melissa's words were calm, measured. You were a victim too, just a different kind. You made mistakes. I did too, but I had time to heal. You had time to sit in a cell. Use your time now to help others. We've both been burned by him. Don't let his flame light your path again. Rebuilding. Hannah moved to Portland, Oregon. She enrolled in a certification program to become a trauma recovery coach. She started writing anonymously for a mental health publication under the pen name Shivers, and she founded an online support group for women who'd escaped manipulative relationships. Its name? The Ashes, Public Redemption. In an online video posted on April 10th, Hannah spoke directly to camera. This is not a story about a love triangle or a crime of passion. This is about a man who turned people into puzzles and destroyed anyone who stopped fitting. If you're watching this and someone has made you doubt your voice, doubt your worth, leave. Now, it doesn't matter how charming they are. It doesn't matter what they promise next. You don't have to wait for a near-death experience to realize you're alive. I waited. Melissa didn't. And because she didn't, I'm still here. 1 year later, August 2020, the lake was still. The same lake where Melissa had once waited, alone, for the man who tried to end her story. Now, a gathering had formed at its edge. Dozens of people holding white flowers, releasing them onto the water. Some cried, some smiled, but all of them were survivors. This was no longer the site of a final confrontation. It was a memorial and a beginning, the ICE Project. In the years since Daniel Whitmore's arrest, Melissa Turner had transformed from reclusive survivor to reluctant advocate, and finally to a quiet force for justice. Her nonprofit, the ICE Project, grew from a single web page to a national organization. Its mission, to help survivors of psychological manipulation reclaim their stories and freeze out those who try to rewrite them. With grants from trauma foundations and partnerships with legal networks, the ICE Project helped victims of coercive control file restraining orders. Survivors access trauma-informed therapy. Police departments recognize manipulation-based abuse. Melissa avoided the spotlight, but continued to write. Her first public piece, published anonymously in The Atlantic, was titled, "How He Tried to Erase Me and How I Wrote Myself Back." Daniel behind bars. Daniel Whitmore now lived inside a maximum security facility in upstate New York. He was placed in protective custody, not to protect him from the outside world, but from the dozens of inmates who had watched his televised trial. He was denied access to computers, banned from all correspondence that wasn't legal or familial, and prohibited from contact with victims or the press. He appealed his conviction once. It was denied within 6 weeks. No one called him a misunderstood genius anymore. He was just another inmate with a life sentence. The ripple effect. The case sparked more than one change. Legislative reform. In 3 states, New York, Georgia, and Florida, new laws were introduced to broaden the definition of coercive control in relationships. In 2 of those states, bills passed under the name the Turner-Clark Protection Act. Pop culture impact. Netflix announced a limited series based on the story titled ICE. Melissa declined involvement, but approved the survivors' participation. Online support. Hannah Clark's group, The Ashes, became one of the largest online forums for survivors of manipulation-based abuse. By its first anniversary, it had over 70,000 members. Hannah was invited to speak at several universities on how manipulation is normalized in young relationships. Her keynote ended with this: if someone loves you but needs to control you, it's not love. It's construction and you're the bricks. Melissa's last interview. Melissa gave one interview that year. Just one. It was for a podcast called Silent Exit, hosted by a journalist who had once doubted her. She answered only 5 questions. The last one was, "Do you think you'll ever get closure?" She paused. "I don't want closure. Closure means the door is shut. I want the door wide open, for every woman still trapped inside someone else's story." One final letter. Months after his conviction, Melissa received one more letter in the mail. No return address. Inside, one sentence typed on white paper: "If I can't rewrite you, no one will." Melissa folded it quietly and placed it in a fireproof box labeled "Unburnable." She never told anyone about it. Not even the FBI, because it didn't matter. Daniel's story was over. Epilogue. The water remembers. At the edge of the lake, Melissa tossed a final flower. Becca, Hannah, Allison, and Marisol stood behind her. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The lake rippled gently, like it was breathing, and somewhere deep beneath its surface, the shadows faded. Because the story that began with a honeymoon deception had ended with something stronger than vengeance. It had ended with truth. And truth, Melissa had learned, floats